The chapel doors exploded outward. Lady Ilara Vance felt the first shove between her shoulder blades, then the second. Her knees cracked against frozen stone. Ice bit through the silk of her gown, already torn at the hem from 3 days of wearing it without reprieve. "Begone!" Dowager Hesperia Vane stood framed in the doorway, her figure wrapped in black lace so tight it looked like armor. The amethyst necklace at her throat caught the weak winter light, refracting it into shards of purple across the snow. Her face held no warmth, no mercy, nothing human at all. "You are a stain upon this parish, a disgrace to your husband's memory. You will not sully our congregation with your presence." Ilara's hand scraped across jagged cobblestones as she tried to rise. Her belly contracted, a vicious twist of muscle and bone that stole her breath. "Not now. Please, God, not now." Behind her, 2 small voices cried out in unison. Mama, Sutton, barely 9 years old, tried to push past the ring of parishioners blocking the chapel entrance. His sister, Beatrice, only 6, clung to his coat with both fists. Their faces were streaked with tears and cold, their lips turning blue. "Let them through." Ilara gasped. The contraction released her for a moment, and she dragged herself forward on her knees. "Please. They're only children. Children of shame." Hesperia descended 3 steps, her heels clicking like a judge's gavel. "Your husband died a traitor. You carry another man's bastard. Did you think we wouldn't notice? Did you think we would simply ignore your condition?" The crowd behind Hesperia murmured agreement. Faces Ilara had known for years. People who had danced at her wedding, who had called her friend, now twisted with disgust. A carriage rolled past, wheels splashing through half-frozen mud. The spray hit Ilara's face, her swollen belly, her trembling hands. The passengers inside didn't even glance her way. Another contraction, stronger this time. Ilara's scream tore through the winter air, raw and animal. She collapsed forward, forehead pressed to the frozen ground. "Mama!" Sutton broke free from the crowd. He threw himself down beside her, his small hands trying to lift her shoulders. "Get up. Please get up. Move aside, boy." Constable Septimus appeared from the side of the chapel, his brass buttons gleaming against his dark uniform. He was a thin man with a thinner mustache and eyes that had never held courage. "Your mother is being removed from church property for vagrancy and moral corruption." "She's dying." Sutton's voice cracked. "Can't you see she's dying?" Septimus looked away. Ilara felt something wet and warm spread beneath her dress. No, 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 no. The baby was coming, right here in the street, in the ice and mud and shame. Her vision blurred. The pain built like a wave, cresting higher and higher until she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but scream. Beatrice sobbed. Sutton held her, his face buried in her hair. The darkness crept in from the edges. Ilara's fingers went numb. This is how it ends, she thought. Alone in the snow while the righteous watch me bleed. Then hoofbeats, fast, urgent, coming closer. A carriage skidded to a halt in the slush, black as a hearse, bearing a crest that made the entire crowd go silent. A silver raven clutching a sword. The door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered beneath a charcoal overcoat with a high fur collar. One side of his face bore a jagged scar that ran from temple to jaw, pale against his skin. His eyes were the color of flint, hard and cold and utterly without mercy. Duke Alaric Sterling, the Butcher Duke. He surveyed the scene with the expression of a man who had seen worse atrocities and committed most of them himself. His right hand rested on a silver-headed cane, but the way he gripped it suggested the wood concealed something far more deadly. "Stand aside." His voice cut through the winter air like a blade through silk. No one moved. Alaric walked forward. The crowd parted without realizing they were doing it, bodies instinctively retreating from a predator. He stopped in front of Constable Septimus. "I said stand aside." Septimus swallowed. "Your Grace, this woman has been expelled from the parish for—" "I don't care." Alaric didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Move. Now. Septimus stumbled backward. Alaric knelt beside Alara. Up close, she could see the scar more clearly, the way it pulled at the corner of his mouth, the coldness in his eyes that spoke of violence done and violence still waiting. Can you hear me? Alara nodded, barely. Another contraction tore through her, and she screamed again, her body arching off the frozen ground. Alaric's jaw tightened. He looked up at Hesperia Vane, who stood on the chapel steps, like a queen surveying her subjects. You did this. It wasn't a question. Hesperia lifted her chin. She is a sinner. And, shut your mouth. The words were soft, almost gentle, but something in Alaric's tone made Hesperia's face go pale. Before I shut it for you. He stood, turned to the crowd. This woman and her children are now under my protection. Anyone who interferes will answer to me personally, and I promise you, you will not enjoy that conversation. He removed his overcoat, knelt again, and wrapped it around Alara's shoulders. Then he lifted her as if she weighed nothing at all, one arm beneath her knees, one supporting her back. Bartholomew. A stout man with a face like crumpled parchment jumped down from the driver's seat of the carriage. He wore a weathered leather vest and carried himself with the casual competence of someone who'd seen everything twice. Yes, Your Grace? Get the children. We're leaving. Bartholomew scooped up Sutton and Beatrice with practiced ease, one under each arm despite their protests. Easy now, little ones. You're safe. Alaric carried Alara to the carriage. She looked up at his face, at the scar, at the eyes that held nothing but controlled fury. Why? She whispered. Because no one deserves to die in the street. He placed her gently on the velvet seat inside. And because I've seen enough death to last a lifetime. The carriage door closed. Bartholomew climbed back to the driver's seat. Sutton and Beatrice pressed against Alara on either side. Through the window, Alara saw Alaric turn back to face the crowd one final time. Go back to your prayers, he said. Beg your God to forgive you for what you've done here today, because I never will. He climbed into the carriage. The wheels began to turn, and as Ashmore Chapel disappeared behind them, Alara felt another contraction building, stronger than all the rest. The baby was coming, and for the first time in 3 months, she wasn't alone. Hello, everyone. Before we go deeper into today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. The carriage wheels clattered over frozen ruts in the road. Inside, Alara gripped the velvet seat with both hands, her knuckles white, her breath coming in short gasps. How far apart are the pains? Alaric asked. Alara couldn't answer. The contraction seized her entire body, a relentless fist squeezing tighter and tighter until she thought she might break in half. Sutton pressed against her side, his face buried in her shoulder. Beatrice whimpered softly. Bat! Alaric shouted through the front panel. Faster! Any faster, and we'll lose a wheel, Your Grace. Alaric cursed under his breath. He leaned forward, studying Alara's face. Look at me. She did. His eyes were still hard, still cold, but there was something else there now. Focus. Purpose. You're not going to die today. Do you understand me? You're not going to die. You don't know that, Alara gasped. Yes, I do. He pulled off his gloves, then reached for her hand. I've seen men die in every way imaginable. I know what death looks like. And you, Lady Vance, are too stubborn to die in the back of my carriage. Despite everything, despite the pain and the fear and the humiliation, Alara almost laughed. The contraction released her. She sagged back against the seat, sweat soaking through her dress despite the cold. Where are you taking us? Stirling Manor, my estate, 3 miles north. They'll say, I'm your mistress. They already say worse about me. Alaric's expression didn't change. Let them talk. The carriage hit a particularly deep rut. Elara cried out, her hand crushing Alaric's fingers. He didn't flinch. Tell me about your husband, he said quietly. Elara blinked. What? Your husband? What was his name? Thomas Vance. How did he die? The question should have been cruel, but something in Alaric's tone made it feel like distraction. A lifeline thrown across deep water. Railway accident. Elara forced the words out between breaths. They said he was crushed between two cars. They said it was instant. Was it? I don't know. They wouldn't let me see the body. Said it was too damaged. Alaric's jaw tightened. When? 8 months ago. He looked down at her swollen belly, and Elara saw the calculation in his eyes. The baby is Thomas's, she said. Whatever Hesperia Vane told you, whatever the town believes, this child is my husband's. I believe you. Just like that? Just like that. Alaric released her hand as the contraction passed. I've interrogated enough liars to know truth when I hear it. And you, Lady Vance, are a terrible liar. The carriage began to slow. Through the window, Elara saw iron gates opening onto a long drive lined with bare trees. At the end stood a manor house built of dark stone, 3 stories tall, with windows that reflected the grey sky like dead eyes. Stirling Manor. The carriage stopped. Bartholomew opened the door, and Alaric stepped out first. Bat, take the children to the kitchen. Mrs. Talbot will feed them. Wait. Elara reached for Sutton and Beatrice. Don't leave me. They need food and warmth, Alaric said gently. And you need a midwife. They'll be safe. I give you my word. Sutton looked up at his mother, his eyes red from crying. Will you be all right, Mama? Elara smoothed his hair back from his forehead. Yes, my darling. Go with Mr. Bartholomew. Take care of your sister. Bartholomew carried Beatrice and guided Sutton toward a side entrance. The boy kept looking back until they disappeared around the corner. Alaric lifted Elara from the carriage again. She should have protested, should have insisted on walking, but another contraction was already building, and she didn't have the strength to pretend anymore. He carried her through the front entrance, past suits of armor and portraits of stern-faced ancestors, up a grand staircase to the 2nd floor. A long hallway stretched before them, lined with closed doors. 3rd door on the left, Alaric said. My mother's room. No one's used it in 20 years, but the bed is good. He shouldered the door open. The room beyond was large and cold, filled with furniture covered in white sheets like ghosts. Alaric laid Elara on the 4-poster bed, then began yanking the sheets off the nightstands and wardrobe. I've sent Bat for Mercy Nightingale. She's the closest thing we have to a midwife in Ashmore. Mercy Nightingale. Elara's eyes widened. The woman who was dismissed from the hospital. They say she was drunk on duty when a patient died. They say a lot of things. Alaric found a quilt in the wardrobe and spread it over her. Most of them are lies. Mercy Nightingale is the best nurse I've ever seen. She was dismissed because she refused to let a doctor bleed a child to death for pneumonia. The child lived. The doctor's pride didn't. He moved to the fireplace and began stacking logs with quick, efficient movements. Within moments, flames crackled to life, pushing back the cold. Elara watched him work. This man, this duke with a reputation for cruelty, who had killed men in service to the crown, who was called the butcher behind closed doors. He was building her a fire. Why are you helping me? The question escaped before she could stop it. Alaric paused, his back still turned. Because 4 years ago, I stood by and watched an innocent woman hang. I had evidence that could have saved her. I chose not to use it because I was following orders. He turned to face her. She had 2 children, a boy and a girl, just like yours. They watched their mother die. Elara's breath caught. I won't stand by again. Before she could respond, the door burst open. A woman swept in, grey hair pulled back in a severe bun, carrying a leather bag that looked older than she was. She wore a simple brown dress and a white apron, already stained with what looked like old blood. "Your Grace." She didn't curtsy, didn't bow. "Where's the patient?" "Here." Alaric stepped aside. Mercy Nightingale approached the bed, her eyes already assessing. She set her bag down and began washing her hands in the basin on the nightstand. "How far apart are the pains?" 2 minutes. Elara gasped. "Maybe less. And your waters?" "Broke in the street." Mercy's mouth tightened. "Let me examine you." Alaric moved toward the door. "Stay," Mercy said without looking at him. "I'll need you to hold her down if this goes badly." He stopped. "Will it?" "I don't know yet." Elara felt Mercy's hands on her belly, pressing, feeling. The older woman's face revealed nothing. "The baby's turned wrong," Mercy said finally. "Breech. I'm going to try to turn it manually, but it's going to hurt. More than the labor pains. More than anything you've felt before." Elara's heart hammered against her ribs. "And if you can't turn it?" "Then we'll deal with that when we come to it." Mercy began rolling up her sleeves. "Your Grace." "Hold her shoulders." Alaric moved to the head of the bed. His hands settled on Elara's shoulders, firm but gentle. Mercy positioned herself at the foot of the bed. "On my count. 1, 2. On 3. Mercy's hands pressed into Elara's belly, pushing, manipulating, trying to turn the baby inside her womb. Elara screamed. The pain was beyond description, beyond thought. It consumed everything, burned through every nerve, turned the world into nothing but white-hot agony. "Almost there," Mercy muttered. "Hold still, girl. Just a few more seconds." Alaric's hands tightened on her shoulders. "Breathe," he said quietly. "In and out. Focus on my voice. Breathe." Elara tried. She locked eyes with him, those cold, flint-grey eyes, and tried to breathe through the pain. Something inside her shifted. "There." Mercy pulled her hands back, relief flooding her face. The baby's turned. Head down now. Elara sobbed with relief. The pain didn't stop, but it changed, became something purposeful instead of simply destructive. "Now the real work begins," Mercy said. "When the next contraction comes, I want you to push. Can you do that?" Elara nodded. The contraction built like a wave. When it crested, she bore down with everything she had left. "Good," Mercy encouraged. "Again. Push." Time lost meaning. There was only the cycle of contraction and push, pain and pressure. Mercy's voice guiding her, and Alaric's hands anchoring her to the world. "I can see the head," Mercy said. "One more push. Give me everything you have." Elara screamed and pushed, and felt something inside her tear and give way. Then suddenly, blessedly, the pressure released. A thin, reedy wail filled the room. "It's a girl," Mercy announced. She worked quickly, tying off the cord, wrapping the baby in a clean cloth from her bag. Small, but breathing well. 10 fingers, 10 toes. She placed the bundle in Elara's arms. The baby was red and wrinkled and covered in vernix, her tiny fists waving in the air. But she was alive, breathing, perfect. "Hello, little one," Elara whispered. Tears streamed down her face. "Hello, my darling girl." Alaric stepped back, his expression unreadable. He stared at the baby for a long moment, then turned and walked to the window. Mercy cleaned up efficiently, her movements practiced and sure. "She'll need to feed soon. I'll show you how. But first, you need to deliver the afterbirth." 20 minutes later, it was done. Mercy had cleaned Elara as best she could, changed the blood-soaked sheets, and settled both mother and baby under warm quilts. "I'll check on you in a few hours," Mercy said. "If you develop a fever or heavy bleeding, send for me immediately." "Thank you," Elara managed. "I don't know how to repay you. You can repay me by surviving." Mercy picked up her bag. "Women like us, We don't get many wins. Don't spoil mine by dying of childbed fever. She left, closing the door quietly behind her. Alaric still stood at the window, his back to the room. Your Grace. He didn't turn. What should I call her? Elara asked softly. The baby. She needs a name. She's your daughter. You choose. Victoria, Elara said. For victory. Because we survived. She paused. Victoria Hope Vance. Alaric's shoulders tensed, then relaxed. It's a good name. Will you look at her? Finally, he turned. He crossed the room slowly and looked down at the bundle in Elara's arms. Victoria Hope had stopped crying and was staring up at nothing in particular, her dark blue eyes unfocused. She's small, Alaric said. She's strong. She had to fight to be born. That makes her a fighter. Something flickered across Alaric's face, too quick to read. He reached out, then stopped himself. You can touch her, Elara said. She won't break. Slowly, carefully, Alaric extended one finger. Victoria Hope's tiny hand wrapped around it, her grip surprisingly firm. Alaric went very still. My sister had a daughter, he said quietly. Before she died, the baby lived 3 days. I'm sorry. So am I. He gently extracted his finger from Victoria Hope's grasp. Rest. I'll have Mrs. Talbot bring you food. He walked to the door. Your Grace? Elara called after him. He paused. Thank you. For my life. For my children's lives. I know you said you were making up for past mistakes, but thank you. Alaric nodded once. Then he left, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Elara looked down at her daughter, at this tiny life that had almost never been, and allowed herself to cry. Not from pain or fear this time, but from relief so profound it felt like grace. They had survived. Against all odds, they had survived. The fever came in the night. Elara woke to find her shift soaked with sweat, her body burning from the inside out. Victoria Hope lay in a bassinet beside the bed, sleeping peacefully, but Elara couldn't stop shaking. She tried to sit up. The room spun violently. No, she whispered. Not now. Not when she'd come this far. She reached for the bell pull beside the bed, but her fingers wouldn't close around it properly. Everything felt distant, as if her body belonged to someone else. The door opened. Alaric entered carrying a tray, took one look at her face, and set it down hard enough to rattle the dishes. You're burning up. I'm fine, Elara managed. You're a terrible liar, remember? He crossed to the bed, pressed the back of his hand to her forehead, and cursed. I'm getting mercy. Don't leave. Elara grabbed his sleeve. Please, the baby. She's right there. She's fine. He gently pried her fingers loose. I'll be back in 15 minutes. Less if Bat drives like his life depends on it. He disappeared. Elara tried to focus on Victoria Hope's bassinet, on the gentle rise and fall of her daughter's breathing. But the fever made everything waver and blur. Shadows gathered in the corners of the room, taking on shapes that couldn't be real. A woman stood by the window. Elara blinked hard. The woman remained, dressed in white, her face turned away. Thomas, Elara whispered. Is that you? The woman turned. It wasn't Thomas. It was someone else. Someone with eyes that held infinite sadness. You have to fight, the woman said. Her voice sounded like wind through leaves. Your children need you. All 3 of them. I'm trying. Try harder. The door burst open. Mercy Nightingale swept in like a winter storm, Alaric at her heels. Out. Mercy barked at the Duke. Now. She's delirious. She was talking to someone who isn't there. I said out. This is women's work. Alaric hesitated, then left. But Elara noticed he didn't close the door completely. Mercy pulled back the quilts and examined Elara with quick, efficient movements. Her face grew grimmer with each passing second. Infection, she said finally. The afterbirth didn't come away clean. There's still something inside you. Elara's vision blurred. Am I going to die? Not if I can help it. Mercy began unpacking her bag. But this is going to hurt. More than the birth. More than the turning. Are you ready? Do I have a choice? Not if you want to see your children grow up. Mercy poured something sharp-smelling onto a cloth. Breathe this. It won't stop the pain, but it'll take the edge off. Ilara inhaled. The world immediately softened at the edges, became dreamlike and strange. Good girl. Mercy's voice seemed to come from very far away. Now, hold still. What happened next existed in Ilara's memory only as fragments. Pain, sharp and invasive. Mercy's voice, steady and calm. Her own screaming. Alaric's hands on her shoulders again, holding her down as she thrashed. Then, finally, blessedly, it was over. Mercy stepped back, her apron covered in fresh blood. Got it. Every last piece. She'll need to stay in bed for at least a week, maybe 2. The wound needs time to heal from the inside out. Will she recover? Alaric asked quietly. If the fever breaks and infection doesn't set in, yes. But it's going to be touch and go for the next few days. Mercy began cleaning her instruments. I'll stay tonight. Someone needs to watch her. I'll watch her, Alaric said. Mercy raised an eyebrow. Your Grace, with all due respect, you don't know the first thing about nursing. Then teach me. This isn't some game. If her fever spikes again, if she starts bleeding heavily, if any number of things go wrong, then you'll be here to fix it. But I'm not leaving her alone. The two stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Mercy sighed. Fine. But if she takes a turn for the worse, you fetch me immediately. No heroics. Understood? Understood. Mercy left, muttering under her breath about stubborn nobles and their death wishes. Alaric pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. Ilara watched him through half-closed eyes, the laudanum making everything soft and hazy. You don't have to stay, she murmured. I know. You barely know me. I know enough. What do you know? Alaric was quiet for a long time. I know you fought like hell to protect your children. I know you didn't beg, even when you were bleeding in the street. I know you're stronger than anyone who left you there to die. He paused. And I know that if you die now, it'll be one more innocent life I failed to save. That woman you mentioned, the one who was hanged, what was her name? Catherine. Catherine Thorne. Tell me about her. Alaric's jaw tightened. Why? Because I'm afraid to sleep. Afraid I won't wake up. And your voice, it helps. He studied her face for a moment, then leaned back in the chair. Catherine Thorne was a governess. She was accused of poisoning her employer's wife after the woman died suddenly. The evidence was circumstantial at best. The motive they claimed was laughable, but the employer wanted someone punished, and Catherine was convenient. And you had proof she was innocent. I had proof the employer had been beating his wife for years, that the woman had tried to run away twice, that she'd written letters to her sister describing the abuse. His voice went flat, emotionless. I also had proof that the employer had been forcing himself on Catherine and had threatened to destroy her if she told anyone. Ilara's chest tightened. Why didn't you use it? Because my commanding officer ordered me not to. Said it would embarrass a man of good standing. Said the Crown needed the employer's support for an upcoming trade negotiation. Said one governess wasn't worth jeopardizing national interests. So you let her hang. So I let her hang. Alaric's hands clenched on the arms of the chair. I told myself I was being a good soldier, following orders, doing my duty. But the truth is, I was a coward. I valued my career more than her life. And her children, sent to a workhouse. I tracked them down afterward, tried to help, but they'd already been separated. The boy was sent to a factory, the girl to a laundry. I never saw them again. Silence filled the room. Outside, wind howled against the windows. That's why you resigned, Ilara said softly. That's why I resigned. That's why I came back here. to this manor, to rot in isolation like I deserve. And that's why you saved me. Alaric met her eyes. That's why I saved you. Elara reached out, found his hand on the arm of the chair. Her fingers were weak, trembling, but she squeezed as hard as she could. Catherine Thorne would forgive you, she whispered. If she could see what you did today, she would forgive you. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because if our positions were reversed, if you were the one who died, and I was the one who lived, I would want you to save the next person. I would want you to choose differently. Alaric's hand turned, his fingers closing around hers. Then don't die. Don't make me choose again. I'll try. Try harder. Elara smiled despite the fever. That's the second time someone's told me that tonight. Smart advice. Her eyes grew heavy. The laudanum pulled her down towards sleep, but this time she didn't fight it. Alaric was here. He wouldn't let her slip away into the darkness. Tell me more, she murmured. About Catherine. About anything. Just keep talking. So he did. He told her about his sister, about the baby who lived 3 days. He told her about his time as an inquisitor, about the crimes he'd solved and the justice he'd served. He told her about Sterling Manor, about growing up in these cold rooms with parents who valued duty above everything else. And Elara listened, drifting in and out of consciousness, anchored to life by the steady sound of his voice. 3 days passed. The fever broke on the second night, leaving Elara weak but clear-headed. Mercy came twice daily to check the wound and change the dressings. Victoria Hope nursed well and slept better, a blessing Elara hadn't dared hope for. Sutton and Beatrice were allowed to visit on the 3rd day. They burst into the room like small hurricanes, all noise and energy and tears of relief. Mama! Beatrice threw herself onto the bed, careful to avoid the baby. We thought you were going to die. So did I, sweetheart. Elara stroked her daughter's hair. But I didn't. I'm here. Sutton hung back by the door, his face pinched with worry. Mrs. Talbot said you were very sick. She said we might have to go to the workhouse. Mrs. Talbot worries too much. Alaric appeared in the doorway. Your mother is recovering well, and no one is going to any workhouse. You're staying here. Sutton's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Now, I believe Mrs. Talbot made biscuits. Why don't you two go investigate before Bat eats them all? The children raced off, their footsteps echoing down the hall. Alaric entered the room and closed the door partway. How are you feeling? Stronger. Mercy says I can get out of bed tomorrow, if I promise to rest. Good. He moved to the window, his usual position. We need to discuss the future. Elara's heart sank. You want us to leave. What? No. He turned, surprise flickering across his face. The opposite. I want you to stay. Permanently. I don't understand. Alaric crossed to the bed, sat in the chair he'd occupied for 3 nights running. The town believes you're my mistress. That Victoria Hope is my illegitimate daughter. If you leave now, you'll be ruined. Your children will carry that stain forever. And if I stay? If you stay, we make it official. We marry. Victoria Hope becomes my legitimate daughter. Sutton and Beatrice become my stepchildren. The Sterling name protects all of you. Elara stared at him. You're proposing. I'm proposing a solution to a practical problem. That's the least romantic proposal I've ever heard. A ghost of a smile touched Alaric's scarred face. Would you prefer I declare my undying love? Get down on one knee. I'd prefer honesty. The smile faded. All right. Honest. I don't love you. I barely know you. But I respect your strength, and I'm drawn to your stubbornness. I think we could build something stable together. Something safe for your children. And in time, perhaps, we might even find affection. And what do you get out of this arrangement? A purpose. A reason to be something other than the butcher duke rotting in his ancestral home. A chance to protect instead of destroy. Elara looked down at Victoria Hope, sleeping peacefully in her bassinet. Then she thought of Sutton and Beatrice, laughing as they ran through the manor's halls. Safe. Fed. Protected. If I say yes, she said slowly. I have conditions. Name them. My children are mine. You will never raise a hand to them. You will never speak to them with cruelty. If I ever see you treat them the way Hesperia Vane treated me, I would sooner cut off my own hand. Alaric's voice was iron. I swear it on my sister's grave. Second condition. This marriage is real, not in name only. I won't be your convenient fiction tucked away in a separate wing. If we do this, we do it properly. Something dark and interested flickered in Alaric's eyes. Understood. Third condition. You teach me everything. How to manage an estate. How to navigate society. How to protect myself if you're not there. I won't be helpless ever again. Agreed. Ilara extended her hand. Then, yes, I'll marry you. Alaric took her hand, raised it to his lips. The kiss was formal, barely there, but it sent a shiver up her arm nonetheless. 1 week, he said. As soon as you're strong enough to stand through the ceremony, we'll marry quietly in the manor chapel. No guests, no fanfare. 1 week. Ilara agreed. He left to make arrangements. Ilara lay back against the pillows, her heart racing. In 7 days, she would be Duchess Sterling. Her children would have a future. Victoria Hope would never know the shame of illegitimacy. But as she drifted towards sleep, she couldn't help wondering what price she'd eventually pay for this bargain, and whether Alaric's past would come hunting for them all. The tea house on Ashmore's main street smelled of bergamot and bitter judgment. Honoria Caskie poured with the precision of a surgeon, her movements sharp and disapproving. Across from her, Isadora Belvoir leaned forward, eyes bright with malicious curiosity. Well, Isadora demanded, what did your nephew say? Did he see her at the manor? Honoria set down the teapot with a delicate clink. Theo saw everything. He delivers coal to Stirling Manor twice a week, you know, has access to the servants' entrance. And she's installed herself in the Duchess's chambers. The old Duchess's chambers, mind you. Sleeping in the very bed where Alaric's mother died, Isadora gasped. The audacity. There's more. Honoria lowered her voice conspiratorially. The children run wild through the halls. No discipline whatsoever. And the Duke, he dotes on that bastard infant, as if she were his own legitimate daughter. Disgusting. It's worse than disgusting. It's a scandal. That woman has bewitched him somehow. Mark my words, she'll destroy what's left of the Sterling reputation. In the corner booth, hidden behind a newspaper, Thaddeus Thorne listened with interest. He was a thin man, with ink-stained fingers, and the sharp eyes of someone who made his living from other people's misery. His London newspaper thrived on scandal, and this was gold. The door chimed. A young boy entered, cap in hand, looking nervous. Theo Finch. He spotted Honoria and hurried over, clearly uncomfortable in the refined atmosphere of the tea house. Aunt Honoria, he mumbled. Theo, we've discussed this. You don't simply barge into establishments where you're not. It's about the lady at the manor, Lady Ilara. Both women leaned forward. What about her? Honoria demanded. Theo twisted his cap. There's going to be a wedding next week. The housekeeper was talking about it. They're ordering flowers and candles for the chapel. Isadora's face went pale. He's actually marrying her. That settles it. Honoria stood abruptly. We must speak to the Dowager Vane. She has influence with Magistrate Ashburton. If anyone can stop this travesty, I don't think you should. Theo interrupted. Both women stared at him. Excuse me? Honoria's voice could have frozen water. The lady seems nice. And the Duke, he's different now. Happier. Maybe. The servants are paid to say whatever their master wishes. Honoria gathered her gloves. You're a child. You don't understand the complexities of proper society. Now run along before you embarrass me further." Theo opened his mouth to argue, closed it again. He shot one last look at his aunt, then fled. Thaddeus waited until the women left before folding his newspaper and leaving several coins on the table. This story was even better than he'd hoped. A duke marrying his mistress. A bastard child legitimized. Society's pearl clutches up in arms. Perfect. He would write it up tonight, have it in tomorrow's London edition. By week's end, all of England would know about the Butcher Duke's scandalous bride. Meanwhile, at Stirling Manor, Theo Finch crept through the servants' entrance carrying a coal scuttle that didn't need refilling. He'd been delivering to the manor since his father died 2 years ago. Knew every back hallway, every shortcut, every place a small boy could hide and listen. And right now, he needed to warn Lady Alara. He found her in the garden, bundled in a heavy shawl, despite the weak sun. She was walking slowly, clearly still recovering, while Victoria Hope slept in a pram nearby. Sutton and Beatrice chased each other through the bare flower beds. "My lady?" Theo approached hesitantly. Alara turned, her face lighting up. "Theo, how lovely to see you. Would you like some tea? Mrs. Talbot made far too many biscuits. I can't stay. I needed to tell you something." Her expression shifted to concern. "What's wrong?" "My aunt, Honoria Caskey. She's planning something with Dowager Vane. They want to stop your wedding. They're going to Magistrate Ashburton." Alara's hand tightened on her shawl. "I see. Thank you for warning me. That's not all." Theo glanced around to make sure they were alone. "There's a man from London, a newspaper writer. He was at the tea house, listening. I think he's going to write about you." "Let him write." Alara's voice was steady, but Theo saw her knuckles go white. "I've been called worse than whatever he puts in his paper, but the Duke knew what he was getting into when he proposed." She smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "We'll weather this storm like we've weathered everything else." Footsteps crunched on the gravel path. Alaric appeared, dressed for riding, his face darkening when he saw Alara's expression. "What's happened?" Alara explained quickly. Alaric's jaw tightened with each word. "Ashburton," he said flatly when she finished. "Of course. The man's been looking for an excuse to challenge my authority since I returned. Can he stop the wedding?" "He can try. There are laws about moral corruption, about the protection of innocent children." Alaric's hand went to his cane, fingers drumming against the silver head. "He could petition the church to refuse to marry us. Or worse, he could attempt to remove your children from your custody." Alara's face went pale. He wouldn't dare. He would if Hesperia Vane convinced him it was his moral duty. Theo cleared his throat. "Your Grace? If it helps, I could find out what they're planning. My aunt doesn't watch what she says around me. She thinks I'm too young to understand." Alaric studied the boy. "That could be dangerous. I'm just a coal delivery boy. No one notices me. I notice you." Alaric pulled a sovereign from his pocket. "For your trouble. And your courage." Theo's eyes went wide. "Your Grace, I can't. You can. And you will. Anyone brave enough to stand against their own family for a stranger deserves to be compensated." The boy took the coin with shaking hands, then bolted before anyone could change their minds. Alara watched him go. "He reminds me of Sutton. That same stubborn loyalty. It's going to get him in trouble someday. Probably. But it'll also make him a good man." Alaric moved to stand beside her, his shoulder almost touching hers. "I won't let Ashburton take your children. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do, they stay with you, even if it means more scandal, more damage to your reputation. My reputation is already destroyed. I'm the Butcher Duke, remember. A few more rumors won't change that." Alara looked up at him. In the pale winter light, his scar seemed less pronounced, his face less harsh. "Why did they call you that? The Butcher Duke?" Alaric was silent for a long moment. "Because I was good at my job. Too good. I could make anyone confess to anything, given enough time and the right persuasion." I never killed anyone who didn't deserve it, but I wasn't gentle about it either. Do you regret it? I regret Catherine Thorne. I regret the innocent lives destroyed because I followed orders instead of my conscience. But the guilty ones? His expression hardened. No, the world is better without them. A cry came from the pram. Victoria Hope was waking, her tiny face scrunching up in preparation for a full-scale wail. Ilara moved to pick her up, but Alaric got there first. He lifted the baby with surprising gentleness, cradling her against his chest. "Hello, little Storm," he murmured. "What's all this noise about?" Victoria Hope stopped crying. Staring up at him with those unfocused blue eyes, Ilara's breath caught. The sight of this hard, dangerous man, holding her infant daughter with such tenderness, made something shift in her chest. "You're good with her," she said softly. "I had a niece, remember, before she died." Alaric's thumb traced Victoria Hope's tiny fist. Her name was Charlotte. She had hair like sunshine and a smile that could charm the devil himself. How did she die? Fever. The same fever that took my sister a week later. I was away on an assignment when it happened. By the time I got home, they were both already buried. "I'm sorry. So am I." He handed Victoria Hope back to Ilara. "But that's why I won't let anyone take this from you. Family is too precious, too fragile, too easily destroyed." Before Ilara could respond, Bartholomew appeared at the garden gate. "Your Grace, Magistrate Ashburton is here. Says he needs to speak with you immediately." Alaric's expression went cold. "Show him to my study. Tell him I'll be there shortly." "Should I come with you?" Ilara asked. "No. Stay here with the children. This is my battle. It's our battle now." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine. But let me do the talking. Ashburton respects authority, not reason." They found the magistrate in Alaric's study, standing before the fireplace like a judge before his bench. Leopold Ashburton was a portly man, with mutton-chop whiskers and the self-satisfied expression of someone who'd never been told no. "Your Grace." He didn't bow. "I've come on a matter of grave importance." "I'm sure you have." Alaric moved behind his desk, a clear power play. "Please, enlighten me." "It's come to my attention that you're harboring a woman of questionable moral character. Furthermore, I've received reports that you intend to marry this woman, thereby legitimizing her bastard child and exposing her other children to a corrupting influence. Have you now? I have a duty to protect the innocent, Your Grace. And those children are innocent, whatever their mother may be." Ilara started to speak, but Alaric held up one hand. "Magistrate Ashburton," he said quietly, "let me be very clear about something. Lady Ilara Vance is not a woman of questionable moral character. She is a widow whose husband died in service to this country's infrastructure. Her child is legitimate, conceived before her husband's death, and if you suggest otherwise again, I will consider it slander." Ashburton's face reddened. "The dates don't match. Everyone knows. Everyone knows the railway company lied about the date of Thomas Vance's death to avoid paying death benefits. I have documentation proving this. Would you like to see it?" The magistrate faltered. "Aye, that's not." "Furthermore," Alaric continued, his voice dropping to something dangerous, "if you attempt to remove Lady Ilara's children from her custody, I will personally ensure that every questionable decision you've made in your tenure as magistrate comes to light. I'm very good at investigations. Would you like me to investigate you?" Ashburton's face went from red to pale. "That sounds remarkably like a threat, Your Grace." "It's not a threat. It's a promise." Alaric stood, placed both hands on the desk. "Now, unless you have official business that doesn't involve harassing widows and orphans, I suggest you leave my home." The magistrate sputtered, tried to find words, failed. He turned on his heel and stormed out. When his carriage wheels had faded down the drive, Ilara released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. "You really have documentation about Thomas's death?" Not yet. But Phineas Mallow does. He's an eccentric scholar who lives outside town, collects odd bits of historical trivia and legal precedents. If anyone has proof of the railway company's fraud, it'll be him. And if he doesn't? Alaric's smile was cold. Then I'll fabricate some. I'm very good at that too. Elara should have been shocked. Should have been appalled at his casual admission of willingness to commit fraud. Instead, she felt safer than she had in months. This man would protect her children. Would protect her. Would burn the world down, if necessary, to keep them safe. And in that moment, she realized she was beginning to care for him. Not love. Not yet. But something deeper than gratitude. Something that might, given time, grow into affection. Or something even more dangerous. Phineas Mallow lived in a cottage that looked like it had been built by someone who'd never actually seen a house before and was working from a very confusing description. The roof tilted at an alarming angle. The windows were all different sizes. The chimney leaned so far to the left that smoke came out sideways. But inside, every surface was covered in books, documents, scrolls, and loose papers, covered in tiny, precise handwriting. Alaric had to duck to enter through the front door. Elara followed, Victoria Hope bundled against her chest, while Bartholomew waited outside with the carriage. "Mr. Mallow," Alaric called. "It's Duke Sterling. I sent word I was coming." A crash came from somewhere deeper in the cottage, followed by creative cursing. "Mind the third step," a voice shouted. "The board's loose." They picked their way through stacks of books and piles of newspapers. In what might have once been a parlor, they found Phineas Mallow himself. He was a small man, barely 5 feet tall, with wild grey hair that stuck out in all directions. He wore 3 different vests layered over each other, and spectacles held together with wire and hope. "Your Grace," he beamed. "And you must be Lady Elara. I've heard so much about you. Please, sit. Mind that stack of parish records. They're fragile." There was nowhere to sit. Every chair held books. "We'll stand," Alaric said diplomatically. "I need your help with a legal matter." "Oh, good. I do love a good legal puzzle." Phineas began rummaging through papers. "What's the nature of the issue?" "Railway company fraud. Specifically, falsifying the date of an employee's death to avoid paying benefits to his widow." "Ah, yes. I have something on that." Phineas disappeared behind a towering stack of books. His voice floated back. "Happened quite a bit in the 1840s. Railway companies were notorious for it. What's the deceased's name?" "Thomas Vance. And the company?" "Midland Rail." Phineas emerged, holding a ledger nearly as large as he was. Midland Rail! Here we are!" Deaths and accidents, 1844 to 1845. He flipped through pages. Vance. Thomas Vance. Found him. He carried the ledger to a relatively clear table and spread it open. Alaric and Elara crowded in to look. Here, Thomas Vance. Died March 18th, 1845. Crushed between 2 cars during coupling operation. Phineas's finger moved down the page. But look here. The coroner's report lists the death as March 11th. 7 days earlier. Elara's breath caught. That's when he stopped writing to me. I thought he was simply busy with work. Not busy, my dear. Dead. Phineas said it matter-of-factly, without cruelty. The company waited a week to report it. Why? Because March 11th was before the new Safety Benefits Act went into effect. But March 18th was after. So they lied about the date, Alaric said slowly, to avoid paying death benefits under the new law. Precisely. And not just to Mrs. Vance. Look. Phineas flipped back several pages. 15 other deaths in that same month, all reported a week or more late, all dated before March 15th. When the act became law, Elara felt tears sting her eyes. They let us starve, all of us, every widow, every orphan. They lied and let us starve. Alaric's hand found hers, squeezed gently. "Can you testify to this, Mallow? In court if necessary?" "Absolutely. I've been documenting corporate malfeasance for 30 years. This is exactly the sort of villainy that keeps me up at night." "Then I need you to write up a formal report. Include everything. Dates, discrepancies, the full list of affected families, and I need you to bring it to Magistrate Ashburton's office tomorrow morning." "But Ashburton is the one who—" Elara started. "Ashburton is a pompous fool," Alaric interrupted. "But he's not corrupt. Present him with irrefutable evidence of fraud, and he'll have no choice but to act on it, especially if Mallow files it as an official complaint." Phineas rubbed his hands together. "Oh, this will be delicious. Ashburton hates being wrong. The look on his face when I present this will sustain me for months." They left shortly after, Phineas already scribbling furiously at his desk, muttering about statutory violations and corporate liability. In the carriage, Elara stared out the window at the passing countryside. "I should feel vindicated," she said quietly. "I should feel triumphant. But all I feel is angry. They destroyed so many lives. For money. For profit. That's what companies do." Alaric's voice was grim. "They reduce human suffering to numbers on a ledger. The trick is making sure the numbers stop adding up in their favor. What will happen to Midland Rail if Mallow's evidence holds up? Fines. Public censure. Possibly criminal charges against the directors who authorized the fraud." He paused. "And every widow on that list will receive the benefits they were owed, with interest. That won't bring Thomas back. No. But it might keep other widows from ending up in the street." Victoria Hope stirred against Elara's chest, making small, unhappy sounds. Elara adjusted her position, began the gentle bouncing motion that usually soothed her. "I keep thinking about what Hesperia said," she murmured. "That I was a stain, a disgrace. That my children were bastards who deserved nothing. Hesperia Vane is a bitter woman who mistakes cruelty for virtue. She's also influential, respected. Everyone listens when she speaks. Not everyone." Alaric leaned forward slightly. "Elara, look at me." She did. "In 3 days, you'll be my wife. That makes you a duchess. That means when you speak, people will listen whether they want to or not. You'll have power, resources, the ability to help other women who find themselves where you were. I don't know how to be a duchess. Neither did my mother, at first. She was a vicar's daughter from Cornwall. But she learned. And you will too." The carriage turned onto the long drive leading to Stirling Manor. Through the windows, Elara could see Sutton and Beatrice playing on the lawn with Bartholomew's dog, a massive beast that looked like it could eat them both, but instead let them climb all over him. "They're happy here," she said softly. "Are you?" The question caught her off guard. Elara considered it carefully. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "I'm grateful. I'm relieved. I'm hopeful, I think. But happy? I haven't had time to think about happiness." "When you do," Alaric said, "tell me what it looks like, and I'll do my best to provide it." It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't poetry or romance, or anything a young girl might dream of, but it was honest, real, solid. And right now, that meant more than any pretty words. The wedding was planned for Saturday morning. By Friday evening, the entire household was in controlled chaos. Mrs. Talbot, the housekeeper, directed operations like a general commanding troops. Flowers had to be arranged. Candles had to be positioned. The chapel had to be cleaned, dusted, and made presentable, despite 20 years of disuse. Elara stood in what would soon be her permanent chambers, staring at the dress laid out on the bed. It was beautiful. Cream-colored silk with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. Simple, elegant. Nothing like the elaborate confection she'd worn when she married Thomas. That had been a different life. A different woman. A knock at the door. "Come in." Mercy Nightingale entered, carrying her medical bag. "Final examination before the ceremony. Make sure you're healed enough for." Well, everything. Elara felt her cheeks flush. Is that really necessary? Would you prefer to spend your wedding night in agony? Mercy set down her bag. Didn't think so. Now lie down and let me work. The examination was quick and professional. When it was done, Mercy packed her instruments away with brisk efficiency. You're healed well. No sign of infection, no tearing that hasn't mended. You should be fine for normal activities. Normal activities. Intimacy, girl. I'm talking about intimacy. Mercy gave her a pointed look. Has anyone actually explained to you what happens between a husband and wife? I've been married before. To a gentleman, I'd wager. His grace is not gentle. Not in that way. He's controlled, yes. But there's violence in him. Passion. You should be prepared for that. Elara thought about the way Alaric had looked when he'd confronted Magistrate Ashburton. The cold fury in his eyes. The barely leashed power. I'm not afraid of him. I didn't say you should be afraid. I said you should be prepared. There's a difference. Mercy paused at the door. He's a good man. Underneath all that scar tissue and guilt, don't let him convince you otherwise. She left. Elara sat on the bed, running her fingers over the silk dress. Tomorrow, she would wear this. Tomorrow, she would become Duchess Sterling. Tomorrow, everything would change. Saturday morning dawned cold and clear. The manor chapel was small, intimate, lit by dozens of candles that turned the stained glass windows into pools of colored light. The air smelled of beeswax and old incense. Elara walked down the short aisle alone. No one to give her away. No family to witness. Just Mercy and Mrs. Talbot sitting in the front pew, with Bartholomew standing at attention near the door. Sutton and Beatrice sat on either side of them, scrubbed clean and dressed in new clothes Alaric had ordered from London. And at the altar, Alaric waited. He wore black, as always. But today, it was formal, tailored. His cane was gone, replaced by empty hands that clenched and unclenched as Elara approached. The vicar was an elderly man from the next parish, someone who owed Alaric a favor and didn't ask questions. The ceremony was brief. Traditional vows, spoken without hesitation. When the vicar pronounced them man and wife, Alaric lifted Elara's veil and kissed her. It was meant to be ceremonial, brief, appropriate for witnesses. But the moment his lips touched hers, something shifted. The kiss deepened, became something hungry and fierce. Alaric's hand came up to cup the back of her head, fingers tangling in her hair. Elara felt heat bloom in her chest, spread outward like wildfire. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. The vicar cleared his throat. Yes, well, I now present to you Duke and Duchess Sterling. Sutton and Beatrice erupted in cheers. Mercy dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. And Elara, for the first time in months, allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be all right. They held a small wedding breakfast in the dining room. Mrs. Talbot had outdone herself with eggs, bacon, fresh bread, and a cake decorated with sugar flowers. Beatrice ate 3 pieces of cake and declared it the best day of her entire life. Sutton was quieter, watching Alaric with wary curiosity. Finally, he gathered his courage and approached. Your Grace? Alaric looked down at the boy. You can call me Alaric now. Or father, if you prefer. Sutton's eyes went wide. Really? Really? You're my stepson. That makes you family. Does that mean I can learn to fence and ride properly? And it means we'll discuss it later. But Alaric's expression softened. After your mother and I return from our honeymoon, Elara's head snapped up. Honeymoon? Did I forget to mention that? My apologies. We're going to London for a week. Bat will watch the children. London? But no arguments. You need proper dresses for your new position, and I need to introduce my Duchess to society before the gossip completely destroys your reputation. I think that ship has sailed. Then we'll build a new ship. Alaric stood, offered his hand. Come. We leave in an hour. The journey to London took the better part of a day. By the time they arrived at Alaric's townhouse in Mayfair, Elara was exhausted. The house was smaller than the manor, but no less impressive. 4 stories of white stone, with black iron railings and windows that overlooked a private garden. A butler met them at the door, along with a housekeeper and 2 maids. Your Grace, Your Grace. The butler bowed deeply. Welcome. Your chambers are prepared. Excellent. Have a bath drawn for the Duchess. She's had a long day. Elara was shown to a suite of rooms on the 2nd floor. The bedroom was done in deep blues and golds, with a 4-poster bed that could easily sleep 6 people. True to Alaric's word, a bath was waiting. Elara sank into the hot water with a sigh of relief, letting the heat work out the knots in her back and shoulders. She was nearly dozing when the door opened. Alaric entered without knocking. He'd removed his jacket and cravat, rolled up his shirt sleeves. Is the bath to your liking? Elara sank deeper into the water, suddenly very aware that she was naked. It's perfect, thank you. Good. He pulled up a chair and sat, completely comfortable despite the intimate setting. We need to discuss tomorrow. Tomorrow? We're attending Lady Pemberton's salon. It's a small gathering, by London standards. 50 people, maybe 60. Mostly intellectuals and artists. Less judgmental than the usual society crowd. You want me to meet 60 people. I want you to meet the right 60 people. The ones who will spread the word that you're educated, articulate, and nothing like the rumors suggest. Elara studied his face. You've done this before. Managed scandal. Not personally, but I've watched others do it. The key is confidence. Own your story before someone else rewrites it for you. And what is my story? You're a widow who fell on hard times through no fault of your own. A woman of strength and dignity who refused to compromise her values even when society abandoned her. And now you're my Duchess, with all the power and protection that entails. What if they don't believe it? Then they'll learn to pretend they do. Because crossing a duke has consequences. He stood, moved toward the door, paused. One more thing. This marriage. I meant what I said about it being real. But I won't force myself on you. When you're ready, if you're ready, you'll tell me. Until then, we sleep in separate chambers. Elara felt something twist in her chest. Relief? Disappointment? She couldn't tell. Thank you. He nodded and left. Elara finished her bath, dried off, and found a nightgown laid out on the bed. It was soft, expensive, utterly impractical. She put it on and climbed into bed. Tomorrow, she would meet London society. Tomorrow, she would begin her new life as Duchess Sterling. But tonight, alone in the dark, she allowed herself one moment of grief for the woman she used to be. The vicar's daughter who married for love. The young wife who believed happiness was simple and achievable. The widow who thought the worst had already happened. That woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, stronger. Someone who had survived hell and come out forged in flame. Elara closed her eyes and slept without dreaming. The next morning, Alaric woke her at dawn. We have appointments, he announced. Dressmaker, shoemaker, milliner. You'll need an entirely new wardrobe. Elara groaned into her pillow. Can't I just wear what I have? You could. If you want everyone at the salon to immediately dismiss you as provincial. That got her up. They spent the day in a whirlwind of fabric samples and measurements. The dressmaker, Madame Bouchard, was a tiny French woman with iron-grey hair and opinions about everything. Non, non, non. Not pink. Pink is for young girls. You are a duchess. You wear sapphire, emerald, colors with authority. She draped Elara in silk after silk, muttering in rapid French, pinning and tucking and shaking her head dramatically. This one, she finally declared, holding up a gown in deep blue. This is you. Strong, elegant, impossible to ignore. Elara stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was unfamiliar. Polished, refined. Nothing like the desperate creature who'd been thrown into the street. "We'll take it," Alaric said. Along with 6 others. Evening wear, day wear, riding habits. Whatever she needs. "Your Grace, that will be extraordinarily expensive," Madame Bouchard warned. "Good. I want everyone to know I spare no expense for my Duchess." By evening, Elara was exhausted. They returned to the townhouse to find dinner waiting and a stack of invitations piled on the entry table. Alaric flipped through them with casual disinterest. "Lady Pemberton's salon is tomorrow. The rest can wait." They ate in the smaller dining room, just the 2 of them. It should have been intimate, but Alaric seemed distracted, his mind clearly elsewhere. Finally, Elara set down her fork. "What's wrong?" "I'm trying to decide how much to tell you." "About what?" "About tomorrow. About what you'll face. I can handle gossip." "It's not just gossip." Alaric leaned back in his chair. "There will be people at that salon who knew Catherine Thorne, who blame me for her death. They won't say it directly, but they'll imply it. They'll watch you, looking for signs that I've corrupted you too. Let them watch. There's more. Thaddeus Thorne will likely be there. The newspaper writer, Catherine's cousin." Ilara's breath caught. "Does he know you're the one who—" "He knows I was the inquisitor assigned to her case. He knows I had evidence that could have saved her. He's spent the last 4 years trying to destroy my reputation." Alaric's expression darkened. "Marrying you gave him new ammunition. Then why are we going?" "Because hiding makes us look guilty. Facing them head-on makes us look strong." Elara considered this. "You're using me as a shield." "I'm using us as a statement. There's a difference." She should have been angry. Should have felt manipulated. Instead, she felt oddly energized. "Fine. Then let's make it a good statement." Alaric's smile was slow and dangerous. "Now you're thinking like a duchess." The next evening, Elara stood in front of the mirror while a lady's maid arranged her hair. The blue gown fit perfectly, hugging her figure in ways that were both flattering and intimidating. Her hair was pinned up in an elaborate style that must have taken the maid hours to learn. She looked like a stranger. A knock at the door. Alaric entered, stopped dead. "You're staring," Elara said. "You're stunning." Heat crept up her neck. "It's just the dress." "No, it's not." He crossed the room, offered his arm. "Are you ready?" "No. But let's go anyway." Lady Pemberton's salon was held in a townhouse near Hyde Park. Music and laughter spilled from the open windows. Carriages lined the street, footmen in colourful livery helping guests alight. Alaric and Elara were announced at the entrance. The room went quiet. Every eye turned toward them. Elara fought the urge to flee. Instead, she lifted her chin, placed her hand more firmly on Alaric's arm, and walked into the room as if she owned it. Lady Pemberton herself swept forward, a tall woman in purple silk with diamonds dripping from her neck. "Your Grace, how marvelous that you could join us. And this must be your new bride. My dear, you're even lovelier than the rumors suggested." "Thank you, Lady Pemberton." Elara's voice was steady. "Your home is beautiful." "Oh, this old thing? Hardly worth mentioning. But come, you must meet everyone." She was swept into a whirlwind of introductions. Lords and ladies, artists and poets, intellectuals who debated philosophy like other people discussed the weather. And through it all, Elara felt eyes watching, judging, waiting for her to make a mistake. Across the room, she spotted a thin man with ink-stained fingers and sharp eyes. Thaddeus Thorne. He was watching Alaric with naked hatred. "Don't look at him," Alaric murmured. "It only encourages him. He looks like he wants to kill you. He's tried twice. Both times, he learned it's harder than it looks." Before Elara could respond, the music changed. A waltz. Alaric turned to her, bowed slightly. "May I have this dance, Your Grace?" Every head in the room swiveled toward them. Elara's heart raced. She'd never waltzed in her life. The dance was considered scandalous in Ashmore, too intimate for respectable people. "I don't know how," she whispered. "Then I'll teach you. Right here. Right now. In front of everyone who thinks you're not good enough." His eyes held challenge. "Unless you'd prefer to hide?" Alara took his hand. "Teach me." They moved to the center of the floor. Other couples made space, forming a circle around them. Alaric placed one hand on her waist, took her other hand in his. "Follow my lead. Step back when I step forward. Let your body move with mine." The music swelled. They began to move. At first, Alara was stiff, awkward, hyper-aware of the watching eyes. But Alaric's hand was firm on her waist, guiding her, and gradually she began to relax into the rhythm. "Good," he murmured. "Now look at me. Not at our feet. At me." She did. His grey eyes held hers, intense and focused. "You're doing this because you have to. Because your children's future depends on it. Because you refuse to let anyone make you feel small ever again." Alara felt something fierce bloom in her chest. "Yes, then own it. Own this moment. Own this room. Make them see what I see." "What do you see?" "A survivor. A fighter. A woman who refused to die in the street, even when the whole world turned its back." They spun, the room blurring around them. Alara felt the weight of her new gown, the heat of Alaric's hand on her waist, the music pulsing through her veins. She felt alive. When the music ended, applause erupted. Real applause, not polite courtesy. Lady Pemberton rushed forward. "My dear, that was magnificent. Wherever did you learn to waltz?" "Just now," Alara admitted. "The Duke is an excellent teacher. Clearly. You must save a dance for my nephew. He fancies himself quite the expert." The evening continued in a blur of conversation and wine and more dancing. Thaddeus Thorne approached once, but Alaric intercepted him before he could reach Alara. The exchange was brief and tense. When Alaric returned, his expression was cold. "What did he say?" Alara asked. "That I've corrupted another innocent woman. That he'll expose me for the monster I am. The usual threats." "Are you worried?" "About Thorne? No. He's a nuisance, not a danger." Alaric's hand found the small of her back. "But there are others who concern me more." "Like who?" Before he could answer, a servant approached with a folded note on a silver tray. Alaric read it, his face going pale. "What is it?" "We need to leave. Now." "What's happened?" "Cyprian Vane has been spotted in London, and he's asking questions about you. I hope you're completely absorbed in Alara and Alaric's journey right now, because this is where I need to pause and be honest with you. Creating these stories takes hours of research, writing, and production. Every character, every twist, every emotional moment is carefully crafted to give you this experience. But here's the reality. If you're watching without subscribing, the algorithm doesn't know you care. It thinks this content isn't valuable. It stops showing these stories to others who might need them. Alara is fighting for her life, her children, her future. All I'm asking is that you fight for this channel by hitting that subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds. Just 2 seconds to ensure that stories like this keep getting made. Now, let's get back to the story, because things are about to get dangerous. The carriage raced through London's streets, wheels clattering over cobblestones. Inside, Alaric sat rigid, his hand gripping his cane with enough force to turn his knuckles white. "Who is Cyprian Vane?" Alara demanded. "A ghost from my past. A mistake I should have corrected years ago." "That's not an answer." Alaric was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. 5 years ago, I was hunting an assassin. Someone who'd killed 3 members of Parliament and a Lord Chancellor. The trail led to Cyprian Vane, younger brother of Hesperia Vane. He was brilliant, methodical, completely without conscience. What happened? I cornered him in a warehouse in Dover. We fought. I thought I killed him. Apparently I was wrong. The carriage lurched around a corner. Alara grabbed the strap to steady herself. "Why is he here now?" Because he holds grudges, and because I publicly humiliated his sister by taking you from her. Alaric's jaw tightened. He'll come for me eventually, but first, he'll try to hurt me by hurting you. Fear coiled in Ilara's stomach. The children, Bat is armed and prepared. Sterling Manor is fortified. They're safer there than anywhere else. You should have told me. Before we came to London, you should have warned me. Would you have come if I had? No? Exactly. Alaric turned to face her. This is my burden to carry. My past coming back to haunt me. You shouldn't have to. I'm your wife now. Your burdens are mine. Ilara's voice was steel. So stop protecting me from the truth and start trusting me with it. Something shifted in Alaric's expression. Surprise? Respect? She couldn't tell. The carriage pulled up to the townhouse. Alaric was out before it fully stopped, helping Ilara down with urgent efficiency. Inside, the household was in lockdown. Every window was shut and curtained. The butler stood at the door with a pistol tucked discreetly under his coat. Any sign of him? Alaric asked. No, Your Grace. But there's a man watching the house from across the street. He's been there for an hour. Alaric moved to the window, peered through a gap in the curtains. Grey coat? Thin build? That's the one. Your Grace. That's not Cyprian. That's one of Thorne's informants, probably hoping to catch some scandal for his newspaper. Should I send him away? Let him watch. If he sees something genuinely dangerous, he might actually do us a favor. Alaric turned to Ilara. Go upstairs. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone but me. What are you going to do? What I should have done 5 years ago. Finish what I started. Absolutely not. Ilara planted herself between him and the door. You're not going out there alone. This isn't a debate. You're right. It's not. She crossed her arms. If Cyprian wants to kill you, the worst thing you can do is run around London like prey, waiting to be hunted. Stay here. Let him come to us. Fight on ground you control. Alaric stared at her. When did you become a military strategist? When I married a man with dangerous enemies. Now, stop being stupid and start being smart. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Yes, Your Grace. They spent the night in a state of tense watchfulness. Alaric positioned himself in the study with a clear view of the street. Ilara sat nearby, unable to sleep, watching the shadows dance across the walls. Around 3 in the morning, she finally spoke. Tell me about your sister. Alaric didn't look away from the window. Her name was Margaret. Meg. She was 5 years younger than me. Kind, gentle, everything I wasn't. How did she die? Fever, like I told you. But that's not the whole truth. He paused. She died because I wasn't here. I was in Dover, hunting Cyprian. I received word that she was ill, but my commanding officer insisted I finish the assignment first. By the time I made it home, she'd been dead for 3 days. That wasn't your fault, wasn't it? I chose duty over family. I chose following orders over being there when she needed me. If I'd come home when I first heard she was sick, she still might have died, Ilara said firmly. Fever kills quickly. You know that. But I could have said goodbye. I could have held her hand. I could have made sure her daughter didn't die alone 3 days later. Ilara moved to stand beside him. You can't change the past. You can only choose how you live with it. And how do you suggest I do that? By making sure no one else suffers the way your sister did. The way I almost did. By using your power and resources to protect instead of destroy. Alaric looked down at her. In the dim light, his scar seemed deeper, more pronounced. You're far wiser than I gave you credit for. I'm a survivor. We learn wisdom quickly, or we don't survive. He reached out, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was gentle, almost tender. I'm glad I saved you, he said quietly. So am I. They stood there in the darkness, not quite touching. both hyper-aware of the small distance between them. Then, glass shattered. Alaric spun, pushing Alara behind him. A brick lay on the study floor, wrapped in paper. He picked it up, unwrapped the paper. "What does it say?" Alara demanded. Alaric's face went cold. "Enjoy your bride while you can. She won't be yours much longer. C. V." Alara felt ice slide down her spine. He was here, right outside. And now he's gone. Alaric crumpled the note. "He's playing with us, testing our defenses. What do? We go back to Stirling Manor. Tomorrow. First thing. That's giving him what he wants. He's trying to scare us away from London. Then he's succeeding." Alaric turned to face her. "I won't risk your life to prove a point. We leave tomorrow." Alara wanted to argue, wanted to insist she wasn't afraid, but the truth was, she was terrified. Not for herself, for her children, for this new life she was just beginning to build. "Fine," she said. "We leave tomorrow." They departed London at dawn, traveling with an armed guard of 6 men Alaric had hired specifically for the journey. The trip back to Ashmore took 2 days, every mile filled with tension, but they arrived safely. Stirling Manor had never looked more welcoming. Sutton and Beatrice raced out to meet the carriage, throwing themselves at Alara with enough force to nearly knock her over. "Mama, you're back! We missed you." "I missed you too, darlings, so very much." Inside, Bartholomew was waiting with a full report. "No trouble while you were gone, Your Grace. The manor's secure. I've posted extra men on the grounds, just in case." "Good." Alaric shrugged out of his traveling coat. "Double the watch tonight. Cyprian knows where we are. If he wants to make a move, this is when he'll do it." That night, Alara put Sutton and Beatrice to bed herself, lingering over the routine. Stories, prayers, goodnight kisses. When she finally made her way to her own chambers, she found Alaric waiting in the hallway. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "I wanted to make sure you were settled." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Alara made a decision. "Would you like to come in?" Alaric's eyes widened slightly. "Alara, not for that. Just, I don't want to be alone tonight. And I think you don't either." He hesitated, then nodded. Inside her chambers, Alara sat on the edge of the bed, while Alaric took the chair by the fireplace. The flames cast dancing shadows across his face. "I'm scared," Alara admitted. "Not of Cyprian. Not really. I'm scared of what happens if something goes wrong. If he hurts my children. If I lose everything I've fought for. That won't happen. You can't promise that." "No. But I can promise that I'll do everything in my power to protect you. All of you." "Why?" The question burst out before she could stop it. "Why does my family matter so much to you?" Alaric was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "Because I failed everyone else who mattered. My sister, Catherine, every innocent person who suffered because I chose duty over conscience. You and your children, you're my chance at redemption. At being something more than the butcher duke." Alara rose, crossed to him, knelt beside his chair. "You're already more than that. You're a good man carrying too much guilt. Good men don't have my history. Good men try to be better. You're trying. That counts." She placed her hand over his. He turned his palm up, laced his fingers through hers. "Stay with me tonight," she said softly. "Just to sleep. I don't want to wake up alone. Alara, please." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. They lay on opposite sides of the bed, a careful distance between them. But as the night wore on, and sleep claimed them both, that distance gradually closed. When Alara woke in the grey light of dawn, she found herself curled against Alaric's chest, his arm wrapped protectively around her waist. She should have been embarrassed, should have pulled away. Instead, she allowed herself this one moment of safety, of warmth, of belonging. Outside, the wind howled, and somewhere in the darkness, Cyprian Vane was watching, waiting, planning. The storm was coming, and when it arrived, blood would be spilled. The morning brought news that made Alaric's jaw tighten with barely controlled fury. Bartholomew arrived at breakfast with a London newspaper, his face grim. "Your Grace, you need to see this." The headline screamed across the front page. "The Butcher Duke's Bride. From Gutter to Grandeur. A Tale of Corruption and Depravity." Below it, Thaddeus Thorne's byline. Elara read over Alaric's shoulder, her stomach sinking with each paragraph. The article painted her as a scheming opportunist who had deliberately gotten herself thrown into the street to entrap a wealthy duke. It suggested Victoria Hope was indeed illegitimate, born of an affair Elara had conducted while her husband still lived. It even hinted that Alaric had orchestrated Thomas Vance's death to clear the path for his own twisted desires. Every word was carefully crafted to avoid outright libel, while implying the worst. "This is going to destroy us," Elara whispered. "No." Alaric set the paper down with deliberate calm. "This is going to destroy Thorne. Because unlike him, we have proof of our claims." "What proof?" "Phineas Mallow's documentation. The coroner's report. Medical records from Mercy Nightingale confirming Victoria Hope's premature birth, consistent with conception before Thomas's actual death date." Alaric's smile was cold. "Thorne made a mistake. He's so blinded by his hatred of me that he forgot to verify his facts. That won't matter to people who want to believe the worst. Then we give them something else to talk about." Before Elara could ask what he meant, the butler appeared again. "Your Grace, Dowager Vane is here. She insists on speaking with you immediately." Alaric and Elara exchanged glances. "Show her to the drawing room," Alaric said. "We'll be down shortly." Hesperia Vane stood in the center of the drawing room, like a black-clad monument to righteous indignation. Her amethyst necklace glittered at her throat, and her face held the expression of someone who'd come to deliver divine judgment. "Your Grace." She didn't curtsy. "I've come to offer you a way out of this sordid mess. How generous." Alaric's voice dripped sarcasm. "Please, enlighten us. Annul the marriage. Send the woman and her bastards away with a generous settlement. I'll use my influence to quash the worst of the gossip. Within a year, this unfortunate episode will be forgotten." Elara felt rage build in her chest. "Those bastards are your own blood. How can you? My nephew was a fool who married beneath his station. His mistakes don't obligate me to acknowledge their offspring." Hesperia's eyes were chips of ice. "You're a clever woman, Lady Elara. Surely you can see that this arrangement benefits everyone. You get financial security. The Duke salvages his reputation. The children grow up without the burden of scandal. And what happens to my children under your proposed arrangement?" Elara asked quietly. "Where do they go?" "A good boarding school. Somewhere far from here, where they can start fresh without the taint of their mother's choices." "You want me to give up my children?" "I want you to do what's best for them, which is clearly not being raised by a woman of your character." Alaric moved so quickly that Hesperia actually stepped back. "Get out, Your Grace. Get out of my home. Now. Before I forget that you're a woman and treat you the way you deserve." Hesperia's face flushed with fury. "You're making a terrible mistake. I have resources you can't imagine. Connections that reach all the way to Parliament. If you refuse my offer, I will destroy you both. You can try." Alaric opened the door, gestured toward it with mock courtesy. "But I've faced worse enemies than a bitter old woman with delusions of power. Leave, while you still can." Hesperia swept out, her skirts rustling with indignation. At the threshold, she paused. "Your brother will be delighted to hear how low you've sunk. Cyprian always said you were weak. I see now he was right." The door slammed behind her. Elara stared at Alaric. "Cyprian is her brother." "Yes, I thought you knew." "You never said. All this time you knew Hesperia Vane was connected to the man trying to kill us. And you didn't think to mention it?" "I didn't think it was relevant. Hesperia and Cyprian haven't spoken in years. She disowned him after he became an assassin. But she just threatened us using his name. Don't you see? She's working with him. This whole thing, the article, the visit, the demands, it's all coordinated. Alaric went very still. You're right. She was stalling, keeping us occupied while, a scream from upstairs, they ran. Ilara reached the nursery first. Victoria Hope's bassinet was empty. The window stood open, curtains billowing in the wind. On the windowsill, a single black feather. No. Ilara's legs gave out. No, no, no. Alaric caught her, held her up. His face had gone pale as death. Bat! Get everyone armed. Seal the grounds. No one leaves. Bartholomew appeared, took one look at the empty bassinet, and cursed. How long ago? Minutes at most. The window's still cold. Alaric gently released Ilara, moved to examine the sill. He went south, toward the woods. Bat, take 3 men and cut him off at the river. I'll pursue directly. Your Grace, this could be a trap. I don't care. That's my daughter out there. The words hung in the air. My daughter, not Ilara's daughter, not Victoria Hope. My daughter. Alaric realized what he'd said, looked at Ilara with something like surprise in his eyes. Then he was gone, racing down the stairs. Ilara started to follow, but Mercy Nightingale appeared and grabbed her arm. You can't go after them. Not yet recovered. You'll slow them down. That's my baby. And they'll get her back. But not if you collapse from exhaustion halfway there. Mercy's grip was iron. You want to help? Stay here. Protect your other children. Make sure this isn't a diversion to get to them. The logic penetrated through Ilara's panic. She ran to Sutton and Beatrice's room, found them huddled together on the bed, terrified. Mama, what's happening? Sutton asked. Someone took Victoria Hope. But your father is getting her back. The Duke isn't our father, Beatrice said quietly. Yes, he is. From this moment on, he is. Ilara pulled them both close. And he will protect all of us, no matter what it costs. Alaric crashed through the woods, following the trail Cyprian had left. Too obvious. Too easy. Definitely a trap. He didn't care. The trail led to an abandoned gamekeeper's cottage at the edge of Sterling land. Alaric slowed, approached cautiously. The door stood open. Inside, Cyprian Vane sat in a chair by the cold fireplace, holding Victoria Hope in his arms. The baby was crying, a thin wail of distress that made Alaric's blood run cold. There you are, Cyprian said pleasantly. He was exactly as Alaric remembered, thin, wiry, with the kind of unremarkable face that disappeared in crowds. I was beginning to think you wouldn't come. Let her go. Why would I do that? She's my leverage, my guarantee that you'll listen to what I have to say. I'm listening. Good. Cyprian stood, began pacing, still holding the crying baby. 5 years ago, you tried to kill me. You thought you'd succeeded. But I survived. Do you know what kept me alive through the surgery, through the fever, through the long months of recovery? Hatred. Revenge. The thought of taking from you everything you cared about. Cyprian smiled. But when I came back, I found you'd already lost everything. Your sister, dead. Your career destroyed. Your reputation in tatters. There was nothing left to take. Until her. He looked down at Victoria Hope. This tiny thing, this helpless infant, she's given you something I thought impossible. Hope, purpose, a reason to keep living. Cyprian's expression went cold. So, I'm going to take her from you. Not quickly, not mercifully. I'm going to watch you suffer the way I suffered. She's innocent. So was I. I was doing my job, following orders, just like you. But you decided I was guilty. You decided I deserved to die. Who gave you that right? The Crown. The law. The evidence of your crimes. Evidence you manufactured. Cyprian's mask of calm cracked. Those letters you found linking me to the assassinations? Forgeries. The witnesses who testified against me? Paid liars. You needed someone to blame, and I was convenient. Alaric felt the ground shift beneath him. That's not true, isn't it? Ask yourself, Alaric. Did you ever actually investigate my alibi? Did you ever question why a professional assassin would be stupid enough to leave evidence lying around? Or did you just accept what your commanding officer told you because it closed the case? Doubt crept in. Alaric thought back to that investigation, to the evidence that had seemed almost too perfect, to his commander's insistence on speed over thoroughness. Even if that's true, he said slowly, you've still committed crimes since then. You took contracts, killed people for money. After you destroyed my life, after you took everything from me, what else was I supposed to do? Cyprian's hands tightened on Victoria Hope. The baby's cries intensified. You're hurting her. I know. Cyprian looked down at the infant. Does it bother you? Watching something innocent suffer because of your choices? Please, whatever you want, I'll give you. Just don't hurt her. What I want is impossible. I want my life back, my reputation, my future. You can't give me those. Cyprian moved toward the window. So I'll settle for watching you lose yours. Alaric's hand moved to his cane, closed around the silver head. One quick pull would free the blade hidden inside. He could throw it, had done so 100 times in training. Could put it through Cyprian's throat before the man knew he was dead, but the angle was wrong. If he missed, if Cyprian moved at the wrong moment, the blade could hit Victoria Hope. He couldn't risk it. There has to be another way, Alaric said. If I wronged you, if I destroyed your life based on false evidence, then let me make it right. I'll find the truth. If you were framed, I'll prove it. I'll restore your name. And what good does that do me now? I've spent 5 years as a criminal. There's no coming back from that. There could be. If you stop now, if you don't cross this line, Cyprian laughed, a bitter sound. I crossed that line years ago. There's no redemption for people like us, Alaric. We're both damned. The only question is how many innocents we take down with us. Behind Cyprian, the window exploded inward. Bartholomew crashed through in a shower of glass, tackling Cyprian from behind. Both men went down hard. Victoria Hope flew from Cyprian's arms. Alaric lunged forward, caught the baby before she hit the floor. She screamed, unhurt but terrified, and he clutched her to his chest with shaking hands. I've got you, he whispered. I've got you. Bartholomew and Cyprian struggled on the floor. Cyprian was smaller but faster, a knife appearing in his hand as if by magic. He slashed at Bat's face, opening a gash across the older man's cheek. Bat roared, slammed his fist into Cyprian's jaw. The knife went flying. Alaric handed Victoria Hope to one of Bat's men who'd followed through the window. Get her back to the manor. Now. Then he pulled the blade from his cane and joined the fight. Cyprian was good, better than good. He moved like water, slipping away from strikes that should have landed, turning defense into offense with brutal efficiency. But he was fighting 2 men now, both larger and stronger, and the confined space of the cottage worked against his mobility. Alaric's blade caught Cyprian across the ribs. Not deep, but enough to slow him down. Bat followed, with a punch that sent the assassin reeling. Cyprian hit the wall, slid down, blood spreading across his shirt. It's over, Alaric said. Surrender. I'll make sure you get a fair trial. Cyprian laughed, spitting blood. A fair trial? From you? That's rich. I mean it. If you were framed, I'll prove it. I'll spend every resource I have finding the truth. Why? What changed? Alaric thought about Ilara, about her children, about the tiny life he'd just saved. I did. I'm not the same man who hunted you 5 years ago. I've learned that blind obedience to authority isn't the same as justice. That sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who lie to us. Cyprian studied him for a long moment. You really mean that? I do. Then you're a fool, because the men who framed me are still out there, still in power, and they'll destroy you for digging into this. Let them try. Cyprian started to respond, then his eyes went wide. He looked down at his chest, where a red stain was spreading faster than it should. The blade, he whispered. Must have. Nicked an artery. Alaric dropped to his knees beside him. Bat, get mercy, now. But even as he said it, he knew it was too late. The blood was pumping out too fast, Cyprian's face going pale. I'm sorry, Alaric said. For everything. For failing you. For not questioning the evidence. For all of it. Cyprian's hand grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. My sister, Hesperia. She's not what you think. She didn't disown me. She's been protecting me, funding me. The targets I killed weren't random. They were all connected to the conspiracy. What conspiracy? The railway, Thomas Vance, your sister, all connected. They were getting too close to the truth. Had to be. Silenced. What truth? Cyprian. What truth? But Cyprian's eyes had glazed over. His hand fell from Alaric's wrist. He was gone. Alaric sat back on his heels, his mind reeling. If Cyprian was telling the truth, if there really was a conspiracy, everything he thought he knew was a lie. 3 weeks passed. Cyprian Vane's death was ruled self-defense. No charges were filed. Hesperia Vane left Ashmore without a word. Her townhouse shuttered and empty. But Alaric couldn't let it go. He spent hours in his study, poring over old case files, newspaper clippings, railway company records. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Every person Cyprian had killed in the past 5 years had some connection to Midland Rail. Directors, inspectors, legal counsel. Even Catherine Thorne's employer had been a silent investor. And Thomas Vance had been an engineer who'd filed safety complaints about faulty equipment weeks before his death. Alaric's sister, Margaret, had been engaged to a railway auditor who'd discovered accounting irregularities. It all connected. A conspiracy to hide safety violations and embezzle funds. Anyone who got too close to the truth was eliminated. Cyprian had been framed as a political assassin to cover up the real motive, protecting corporate profits. Alaric took his findings to Magistrate Ashburton, who took them to the Crown. Within days, arrests were made. Directors dragged from their homes, bank accounts frozen. The scandal consumed London's newspapers for weeks. Thaddeus Thorne wrote a retraction and apology. It was grudging, minimal, but it was something. And through it all, Elara stood beside Alaric, supporting him, believing in him when the investigation seemed impossible. They grew closer, not through grand gestures or passionate declarations, but through quiet moments, shared meals, late-night conversations, the simple intimacy of two people learning to trust each other. One night, as winter gave way to early spring, Alaric found Elara in the music room. She was attempting to play the piano, fumbling through a simple melody. I didn't know you played, he said. I don't, but I'm learning. I decided that if I'm going to be a duchess, I should have at least one ladylike accomplishment. He sat beside her on the bench. May I? She moved over to make room. Alaric's fingers found the keys, and music filled the room. It was a waltz, the same one they'd danced to at Lady Pemberton's salon. Elara's hands joined his, following his lead. They played together, sometimes in harmony, sometimes fumbling, but always together. When the music faded, Alaric turned to her. I need to tell you something. What? What? I'm falling in love with you. Elara's breath caught. Alaric, I know this wasn't supposed to be a love match. I know we married for practical reasons. But somewhere between saving your life and you saving mine, I stopped being able to imagine my future without you in it. I feel the same, Elara whispered. I didn't think I could love again after Thomas. But you're not Thomas. You're something entirely different. Something I didn't know I needed. He cupped her face in his hands, kissed her softly. When they broke apart, both were trembling. "Come to bed with me," Elara said. "Not as a duty, not as an arrangement, as my husband, as the man I love." "Are you certain?" "I've never been more certain of anything." They went upstairs together, hand in hand. And for the first time since they'd married, Elara didn't sleep alone. The grand masquerade at Stirling Manor was Elara's idea. "We need to show society that we're not ashamed," she'd argued. "That we're strong enough to face them all, that they can't break us." Alaric had agreed, though he'd insisted on extensive security measures. Armed guards at every entrance, background checks on every guest. No one entered without an invitation bearing Alaric's personal seal. The night of the ball, the manor blazed with light. Carriages lined the drive for half a mile. The cream of English society arrived in their finest clothes and most elaborate masks. Elara wore midnight blue silk with silver embroidery. Her mask was adorned with sapphires that caught the candlelight. She looked every inch a duchess. Alaric stood beside her in black and silver, his own mask doing nothing to hide the scar on his face. He'd stopped trying to hide it. The scar was part of him, a reminder of who he'd been and who he'd become. They greeted guests together. Lord Pemberton, Lady Ashford, even Magistrate Ashburton, who'd softened considerably since the railway conspiracy had been exposed. And then, impossibly, Hesperia Vane arrived. She swept into the ballroom without an invitation, without a mask, her black widow's weeds a stark contrast to the colourful crowd. "Dowager Vane," Alaric said coldly. "You weren't invited. I came to confess." Her voice carried across the suddenly quiet room. "To tell the truth about my brother. About everything." Elara stepped forward. "Then speak." Hesperia's composure cracked. For the first time since Elara had met her, the older woman looked old, fragile. "Cyprian was innocent. When you framed him 5 years ago, Your Grace, you destroyed an innocent man. He came to me for help, and I used him, turned him into the weapon I needed to protect my own interests in the railway company." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I gave him the names, told him they were threats to expose him. He killed them thinking he was protecting himself, but really, he was protecting my fortune." Hesperia's voice broke. "He died still believing I loved him, that I was trying to save him. He never knew I'd been using him all along." "Why are you telling us this?" Alaric asked. "Because you were right. About the conspiracy. About all of it. And I can't live with what I've done." Hesperia pulled a folded document from her bodice. "This is a full confession. Names, dates, bank transfers. Everything you need to finish what you started. It's over. I'm over." She handed the document to Alaric, then turned to Elara. "I'm sorry. For what I did to you. For what I did to Cyprian. For all of it. Not that it matters now." Before anyone could stop her, Hesperia walked to the balcony doors and stepped outside into the winter night. Alaric started after her, but Elara caught his arm. "Let her go. She's not worth it. She could provide testimony. You have her confession. That's enough." They found Hesperia's body at the bottom of the cliff behind the manor an hour later. The official ruling was accident, but everyone knew better. The ball continued, but the mood had shifted, darkened. Elara found herself on the balcony later, staring out at the stars. Effie Graves approached, a young woman who'd been Lady Pemberton's companion. She'd become something of a friend over the past weeks. "That was quite dramatic," Effie said quietly. "This whole season has been dramatic." "Yes, but you've handled it beautifully. The way you stood beside the Duke, the way you faced down society. You've earned their respect, or their fear. Sometimes those are the same thing." Effie smiled. "For what it's worth, I think you're going to be an excellent Duchess. You have steel in your spine and fire in your heart. That's a rare combination." Music drifted from the ballroom. Another waltz. Alaric appeared at Elara's side. "May I have this dance?" She took his hand. They waltzed under the stars, holding each other close, while the past burned away behind them and the future stretched ahead, uncertain but theirs. Spring came to Ashmore with a violence of colour. The gardens at Stirling Manor exploded with roses and lilacs. The trees burst into leaf overnight, and Alara, standing at her bedroom window watching Sutton and Beatrice chase each other through the flowers, felt something she hadn't felt in over a year: peace. The railway conspiracy trials had concluded. 12 directors convicted. Millions in embezzled funds recovered and distributed to the families of dead workers. Thomas Vance's name had been cleared, his death officially recognized as murder. Alara had used her portion of the settlement to establish a fund for railway widows and orphans. The Vance Foundation would ensure no other woman would be thrown into the street for crimes she didn't commit. Alaric had been cleared of all wrongdoing in both Cyprian's death and the original investigation. The Crown had offered him his old position back. He'd refused. "I'm done with that life," he'd told Alara. "I want to build something instead of destroy. I want to be the man Victoria Hope thinks I am when she looks at me." Now, 6 months after that terrible winter, they were hosting a christening, not for Victoria Hope. She'd already been baptized in those desperate early days. This was for Thomas Alaric Stirling, born 3 weeks ago with his father's grey eyes and his mother's stubborn chin. The chapel filled with guests, real guests this time, not curiosity seekers or scandal mongers. Phineas Mallow, Mercy Nightingale, Bartholomew Quayle, his scarred face beaming with pride as he held Victoria Hope. Theo Finch, now employed as Alaric's personal secretary despite being only 15. Lady Pemberton and Effie Graves. Even Magistrate Ashburton attended, having become something resembling a friend. The ceremony was simple, beautiful, perfect. Afterward, Alara found herself in the garden, with Victoria Hope toddling beside her on unsteady legs. The baby was nearly a year old now, all smiles and curiosity and fearless enthusiasm. "Mama, Mama, look!" Victoria Hope pointed at a butterfly. "I see it, sweetheart. Isn't it beautiful?" Alaric joined them, baby Thomas sleeping against his shoulder. "She's going to be trouble, this one. Already too curious for her own good. She gets that from you. She gets everything good from you." Alara leaned against him, careful not to wake the baby. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been if you hadn't stopped that day in Ashmore? Every day. And I thank God I did. I thought I was going to die. I'd made peace with it. All I wanted was for my children to survive. They did more than survive. They thrived. Look at them. In the distance, Sutton was teaching Beatrice to fence with wooden swords. Both children shrieked with laughter, their faces alight with joy. "We did this," Alara said softly. "We built this. A family, a home, a future. You did this. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I'm strong because you gave me the chance to be. You saw me at my lowest and still believed I was worth saving. You were always worth saving." Alaric kissed the top of her head. "You just needed someone to see it." Theo Finch approached, slightly out of breath. "Your Grace, there's someone at the gate asking for you. Says her name is Isadora Belvoir. She looks in a bad way." Alara and Alaric exchanged glances. Isadora Belvoir had been one of Hesperia's closest allies, spreading rumors and poison wherever she went. "What does she want?" Alaric asked. "She won't say, just that she needs help, that she has nowhere else to go." Alara thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, desperate, alone, cast out by the very people who should have helped her. "Let her in," she said. Alaric raised an eyebrow. "Are you certain? Someone gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it. When I'd done nothing to earn it except refuse to die quietly. Maybe it's time I did the same. You're a better person than I am. No, I'm just someone who remembers what rock bottom looks like, and I won't let anyone else hit it alone if I can help." They walked back to the manor together. a family forged in fire and tempered by love. Behind them, the gardens bloomed. Ahead of them, whatever future they chose to build. And for the first time in her life, Ilara knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. 1 year later, the letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in April. Alaric read it at breakfast, his expression unreadable. Then he set down his coffee cup with deliberate care and looked at Ilara. "The Queen wants to meet you." Ilara nearly choked on her tea. "I beg your pardon." "Victoria, Her Majesty. She's requested our presence at court. Says she's heard remarkable things about the Vance Foundation and wants to discuss expanding it nationwide." I don't. "Alaric, I can't meet the Queen." "Why not? You faced down Dowager Vane, survived childbirth in the street, rebuilt your entire life from nothing. A simple tea with the Queen should be easy by comparison." "A simple tea with you're mad. You've gone completely mad." But 3 weeks later, Ilara found herself in Windsor Castle, wearing a gown that cost more than her father's annual living, being introduced to Queen Victoria. Her Majesty was smaller than expected, young, barely 30, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Lady Sterling, or should I say the famous Duchess who refuses to disappear quietly." Ilara curtsied deeply. "Your Majesty, I've read about you, about what happened in Ashmore, about your foundation, about your husband's investigation into the railway companies." The Queen gestured for them to sit. "You've caused quite the scandal. We never intended." "Good. Scandal is necessary sometimes. It shakes loose the rot hiding beneath respectability." Victoria's expression softened slightly. "I lost my own husband recently, Albert. The grief is overwhelming, but I have my children, my duty, and women like you, who refuse to let tragedy define them. You give me hope that I might rebuild as well." "Your Majesty, I'm honored, but I'm hardly. You're exactly what this country needs. Women with strength, with intelligence, with the courage to stand up to corrupt systems and demand better." The Queen leaned forward. "I want to fund your foundation, personally, and I want you to help me reform the railway safety laws. Your husband's investigation exposed the tip of the iceberg. I want the whole thing brought down." Ilara felt tears sting her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Say you'll help me make sure no other woman ends up where you were. Say you'll use your voice, your story, your pain, to create change." "Yes. Yes. Of course. Yes." The meeting lasted 2 hours. When it was over, Ilara and Alaric returned to their London townhouse in a daze. "Did that really just happen?" Ilara asked. "I believe it did. The Queen wants me to reform railway law. Apparently. I don't know anything about law. You'll learn. You learned everything else." Alaric pulled her into his arms. "I'm so proud of you, of everything you've become. I couldn't have done any of it without you. We saved each other. That's what we do." The reforms passed Parliament within a year. Mandatory safety inspections, standardized equipment, proper compensation for workers' families. The Vance-Sterling Act, they called it. The foundation grew. Chapters opened in Manchester, Liverpool, Edinburgh. Hundreds of widows received training and support to rebuild their lives, and through it all, the Sterling family grew as well. 2 more children, Margaret Mercy Sterling, named for Alaric's sister and the nurse who'd saved Ilara's life, and later, Catherine Hope Sterling, named for the woman whose death had haunted Alaric for so long. Sutton went to university. Beatrice became an accomplished pianist. Victoria Hope grew into a fierce, intelligent girl who declared at age 7 that she intended to be Prime Minister someday. Thomas Alaric became his father's shadow, learning estate management and dreaming of the day he'd inherit Sterling Manor. And Ilara and Alaric grew old together, not always peacefully. They argued and disagreed and drove each other to distraction sometimes. But they loved, fiercely, completely. with the kind of love that only comes from choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard. 20 years after that terrible winter day in Ashmore, Elara stood in the chapel where she'd married Alaric. But this time, she was watching Victoria Hope marry a young politician who shared her passion for reform. "She looks beautiful," Alaric murmured. "She looks like she's going to change the world. She gets that from her mother." Elara smiled. "She gets it from both of us, and from Thomas, and from every woman who refused to die quietly in the street." The ceremony concluded. Victoria Hope and her new husband walked down the aisle, radiant. That night, Elara and Alaric sat in the garden, watching the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Alaric asked. "Marrying me? Choosing this life every day," Elara said. He looked at her in shock. She laughed. "I'm joking, you fool. Of course I don't regret it. Yes, it's been hard. Yes, we've faced things I never imagined. But I wouldn't trade a single moment. This life, this family, you're my greatest adventure. Even greater than being thrown into the street in labor. That wasn't an adventure. That was a nightmare. That turned into a fairy tale." "No." Elara took his hand. "Not a fairy tale. Fairy tales are about magic solving problems. This is about us solving problems. About choosing to fight for each other, for our children, for the life we wanted to build. That's better than any fairy tale." Alaric kissed her softly. "I love you. I will love you until my last breath and beyond. I know, and I love you the same." They sat in the garden as the moon rose. Two people who'd found each other in the darkest moment and built a dynasty from the ashes. The sterling legacy would endure for generations. Not because of wealth, or title, or power, but because two broken people had chosen to mend each other, to build something beautiful from tragedy, to prove that love, real love, can transform the world, and that sometimes the greatest acts of courage are simply refusing to give up, refusing to die quietly, refusing to let darkness win. Thank you for staying with Elara and Alaric's journey all the way to the end. Their story began with abandonment and ended with legacy, with love, with hope. If this story touched your heart, if you felt something real in these characters' struggle and triumph, I need you to do something for me right now. Subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and comment victory below to show me you made it to the end. Your engagement is what allows me to keep creating these stories, to keep bringing you characters who fight, who love, who refuse to give up. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers. You could be the one who gets us there. You could be part of this community we're building together. Don't just watch. Participate. Subscribe. Engage. Be part of the story. Until next time, may your own story be one of courage, love, and the strength to rise no matter how far you fall. We will see you in the next chapter. Thank you.